Hello, welcome to the Freedom from Anger podcast. It's been a while, but thank you for tuning in. I just wanted to say thank you for hanging in there. It's been a crazy couple of months, but I think I got things back on track. So hopefully you get some more content in your way. Before I get to this amazing guest that I had on, I want to take a step back and give a big thank you to Mr. Eric Fisher, who was my last guest that I posted. And since then, he has put out a book. It's available on Amazon. Please check it out. It's called The Martial Art of Recovery, Self-Mastery Practices to Subdue Addiction and Achieve Mental Wellness. I'm sure it's a great book. I haven't had a chance to get a copy of it, but please give Mr. Fisher a look. And all right, moving on. This episode, it's taking me a while to get posted, but it's Mr. Atlas Aultman. He himself is also an author, so please check him out as well. A best-selling author. To boot, his latest book, The Rule of Three: How Elite Leaders Win. He has spent a lot of time being a leader, and he's now sharing his wisdom to people on how to be leaders, leadership roles, and he's done TED Talks, you name it. He's out there. Great guy, amazing guy, and had an amazing time talking with him, and I'm sure you will enjoy the podcast. That being said, I guess I'm a bit rusty on my editing. This is definitely not my best work. Just kind of bear with me on that. It's a bit choppy and I don't know. But you can get a lot of good information from it, so please bear with me. So without rambling on anymore, thank you so much, and I look forward to the next part of the year and getting more information out there. And all right, thank you so much. And here is the show.
Hello, welcome to the Freedom from
All
Anger
right,
podcast.
well,
I am joined
that's
today
the
with
podcast.
an amazing
Hopefully you
guest,
enjoyed it.
Atlas. Thank you so much for being
Again,
on.
apologize for
How
the
you doing
quality
today?
of it.
Hey, James.
It's a bit
Man, yeah, I'm
choppy. It's a
good. We
bit,
talked a couple weeks ago, and I
really
listened to your
slacking in my
show,
editing
and I
abilities,
just
trying
got,
to get better at it.
we talked a little bit before the show
But
about how exciting this is
information's
going to be,
there.
and I
Just
can't
gotta
wait, man. It's going
kind
to be a
of
good
look
one,
over
man.
the
Between you and I and the vibe we
the
got going
flaws.
on, this is
But
going to be a great show.
thank you so much for having me
I've
in
been
there,
looking forward to
and hopefully
this
I'll get some more,
recording or
posted here in
podcast,
the
we
near
want to call
future.
it, because we
But,
come from,
until then,
I'd say, similar backgrounds,
hope everybody's
military.
doing
You
good.
definitely were a little bit more special
right here
forces
at
than
the
I
middle
was.
of the
so
year.
a little bit
Yeah.
different.
Hopefully,
But
the
with
next
the
part of the year is better
camaraderie,
than the last
just
part.
Any veteran,
always hope
there's
for
a
the best.
connection. I don't care
But,
if you were
thank you so
a
much for
clerk at
listening,
whatever,
and
and
as
you were
always,
special
stay
forces.
safe.
You still have that connection regardless.
Yeah, that's so true, man. Sometimes you get into it with a veteran you never met, and it's the funny thing about military folks. Give us 10 minutes with another military member, and we'll be best friends. That's how we get. We know how to talk, how to walk, how to eat, when to sleep, what to listen to,
Yeah.
what not to listen to, how to stay out of trouble, how to get into trouble. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, no, the special forces groups were definitely interesting. I had to fight my way to get in there, and the first time I applied, man, they were like, "No thanks," and I was like, "Well, that sucked." Yeah, I thought I'd do all right, and then I got the invite to come back and do more of a joint special operations job. So I got to work with special forces and the SEALs, and that yelling up there. That's 7 kids in the house. So that if you hear that, that's what that's going. That's not an earthquake.
Right.
No, the thing that I like to say is, and every military member knows what that means.
That's right. Oh, Lord.
Yeah, to work in there, I definitely had to work my butt off to try to get into the special operations and that took me a while. So it was fun. It was real fun. Yeah. It's not any different than anything else. It's just everyone else in that community thinks that they're better than everyone else in a lot of things. So dealing with alpha type personalities was always fun. Dealing with normal people is fun too, but dealing with people who think they are right because they have a track record of being right, it's definitely an interesting thing. Did you work at all with any of the special operations crews?
I did not. I was the air wing. I worked with the pilots and stuff like that. My main job was building the bombs and training people how to build the bombs and missiles and all the ordnance that came with the F-18.
F-18s. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm sure I taught a few people some things that probably landed overseas.
Yeah, that's fun.
A good buddy of mine, Andy, he's probably going to hate me for saying this, but he joined the Marines a year before I did. And I was kind of thinking about what to do in my life or whatnot. And so I decided to join the Marines. And hey, my dad was a Marine. So he decided to go the infantry, and he joined the amphibious recon of the Marines. So it's kind of like our SEALs. He originally wanted to be a sniper, but his eyesight was so bad, and he did the corrective surgery and stuff. And then he came back, and they're like, well, the course has already started, and he's like, okay, well, what else? So he chose amphibious recon, and they told him, you could have started the sniper school.
Everyone tells you the wrong thing. I found that if you want to go to school, you just show up, and then they're like, well, we'll figure it out. But
That's right. That's right. That's right.
oh, snipers, one of the things that I got out of the special operations community, and it's been advertised since I said it on a couple shows now from the special operations community that has been out for some time now. They're starting to pick up on some of the stuff that they learned, and they're like, hey, that actually does work. One of the things that they teach snipers is called box breathing, right? And that's breathing in for 3 seconds, holding for 3 seconds, breathing out for 3 seconds, and then holding for 3 seconds until you can feel that mind-body connection.
Yeah.
So everyone remembers that from their training. They're like, oh, yeah, that was good. And snipers do that. They hold their breath at the end, and then they'll take the shot on the words fire, fire, fire. And if they're closer, it's execute, execute, execute. It's always three series, which is why 3 series box breathing seems to work. But with that, I modified it, and I make it just 3 seconds, then I can connect my mind and my body. So after you do box breathing for a while, you can figure out what you're looking for. It's like, do you hunt? You ever gone hunting?
Oh yeah, I used to hunt years ago. It's been a while since I've hunted.
I hung it up for a while, and then I came back in, and I noticed all this technology was involved, and I got this thing called an ozone maker. And what it does is it takes all of the smells that you have, and it dissipates it with ozone. So ozone gets rid of all the smell. So I put this thing above my head, and then anytime the wind would blow, the ozone would go with it. And by the time it would come down to the ground, it would smell like ozone. And what was happening? The smell is it's a big deal. So that's the last thing you do whenever you're assessing the sills, right? Stop, look, listen, and smell. But anyways, the smell of this ozone, it came out of the machine, and it would waft over me, and then I smelled ozone for the first time. It had been around in cars for a while, but I had not known what ozone smelled like until I had this ozone maker, and I'm like, oh, that's ozone. And now I can recognize ozone whenever I'm around. When I'm running out into a big city, I'm like, man, a lot of ozone around here. So I can smell it. Same thing with box breathing. So when you're box breathing, you can feel that connection between your mind and your body. And whenever you figure that out, that sweet spot, you can get in there and you can modify it to where it's shorter. So I do a modified box breathing I call it 3 breathing. So I breathe in for 3 seconds, and then I hold it until I feel that connection between my mind and my body. It usually takes me about 4 or 5 seconds. But then I'm boom, instantly connected. And then it reshifts things. Like if you're nervous, if you box breathe, you can get rid of nerves. It actually calms you down. It reduces your heart rate. All the stuff that you do with box breathing, you can do whenever you figure out that sweet spot. You can do it with 3 breathing, and then you're there. So if you're nervous, you can remind yourself that it's not nerves, it's excitement. Because it's the same thing. Your body just doesn't recognize what it is until your brain tells you what it is. You think you're nervous, but it's really just excitement many times. So I use that one a lot. But that's what he would have learned. That's probably what his biggest lesson he would have learned is some box breathing. So
I think he really enjoyed his time with the amphibious recon people, and
yeah,
he can swim like a fish.
I bet you he went through a lot to swimming school and stuff, man.
He's one of my heroes.
The last tattoos I got, right when I hit the button for the final time, I was like, hey, I'm leaving. And they're like, cool. I rounded up all my combat missions, the times that I'd gone out and actually done things or whatever. And I counted them up, and then I figured out, like, that's enough to cover my back in feathers.
Yeah.
So on one half of my back, I have feathers, and they're like raven feathers because that's what I did in the military, is like a bird of war, just communicate through all of this stuff. And so I got it, and then it went into my arm. Yeah, it comes off the side of my arm here. And I went out to visit some SEAL teams, and I noticed they had similar feathers, not like mine, but they were feathers. They were like from a crow or raven. I was like, those are cool. And someone told me that they're associated with whatever mission they had where they took out an HVT, a high value target. And I'm like, crap. I didn't take out any value targets. It was a support tool under those missions, but I didn't take out any of those. So I kind of felt like a poser after the fact. But no, they all have meetings. They're all combat related, and it's all part of the culture of getting that done. So yeah, I have that on one side. I got St. Michael on the other. I got St. Christopher. When my mom died, St. Christopher's on my leg. She used to give me a St. Christopher every time I go somewhere, and then a St. Michael. So I lost all my St. Christophers. He passed away. I got a St. Christopher on my leg, and then I found all of those medals, man. Like the very next move, they were all like put together in a box. So I was like, there they are. I was like, thanks, Mom. That's so I don't know if that's approval or disapproval. I don't know. I don't talk to the dead, but still.
My dad's, he's 87. He's doing well, but who's to say a month from now, he's not going to pass away. So it's just getting yourself ready for that. But
there's a difference though when it's all of a sudden and then age. I've experienced that too, and it sucks though. Yeah, you're right. But with any loss, man, anger is one of the steps. And I'm not sure if you experienced it in the 8-hour drive that you had going back to see your family after you heard about your mom.
Oh, Lord. That was the longest drive.
Yeah. But, the stages of grief, they're all there, right? And anger is one of them. It's shock and then fear and then, all of the stages. But, like, for me, I always got super angry whenever I'd lose somebody, like to a suicide, especially. Like I always hated suicides, and the suicide losses are the worst because it's probably something that they could have gone through if I would have done more. And I always put it on me.
Yeah,
I always put it on me. Like, why did I lose somebody? And I don't talk about them too much, but the one that really hit me the hardest was the first one. And the kid was just an all-star, superstar kid. And he went out and did a couple combat deployments. He folded in with the regular Army as an attached Air Force guy to boost up the numbers and make sure everything was good. So that'll give you a time frame. It was about like 15, 20 years ago. And he came back and he was a good kid, man, but they went and sent him back out again. He ended up taking his life out there. And, they do an investigation, all that. I'm pretty sure I'm not allowed to release this, but the investigation found that, him and his girl were having problems, and he didn't want to deal with that, so he took his life. And I felt bad, man. I felt really bad because I was like, how come I didn't pick up on that? Because I was always calling him. I was like, hey, how you doing? Do you need anything? But I never asked him about his personal relationships. And then I'd always ask about people's personal relationships after that. But it always sucks hearing about somebody, somebody's gone all of a sudden, the old agers, like when my grandpa passed, when my grandma passed and they were old, I was like, that sucks, but they had a good life.
I'm 40 plus years old, and I'm looking at retiring from my current position, and I want to work with vets. I've always put that out there, like with my business. Hey, if you're a first responder, a vet, 25% off, just out the gate. Because I know it's a different mentality, it's a different lifestyle, and it doesn't really fit in modern day culture. And I've worked my current position for 9 years, and I've applied for supervisor positions or just something up one level and just shut down. I'm just like, okay, so I was 20 and I was teaching people how to build bombs that are 18 years old, but I can't supervise you. Okay, all right. It's kind of
Life or death.
Yeah, it's definitely a different thing.
My significant other, she was out on a business trip, and the guys that she's working with are like, hey, what's Atlas up to? And she's like, he does like leadership consulting. He does like a stage a week, he does a lot of leadership like tips, and he's got leadership books. And they're like, did he go to like some leadership schools or something? And she's like, it's amazing how much these people don't understand. Like you were in charge of life and death continuously. And I was like, the best way to explain to a civilian what I've done is I have worked directly for 20 billionaires or general officers who are responsible for billions of dollars. They get their own jet, they get their own helicopter, they have drivers, they have people that take care of stuff for their life. They're billionaires. And then I got to be their operational manager to do things that they wanted to do that they gave specifically to me, which included thousands of people, which was life or death in a lot of war zones. And to go into that, like the whole mantra, like you're right, man, I like working with vets. I like working with first responders because they look at it different, man. Like when I was in Afghanistan the last time, I was doing director of communications. So we were in charge of all the radio stuff, the network stuff, all of the stuff that goes in between the air and the ground, all the stuff that going back home, like the data collection and the intel stuff and all of the data. It's just a lot of stuff, right? And so whenever we're doing that, a lot of the contractors we brought in were non-military people. So what do you do? Because like there's a good chance we're going to get attacked. So I was like, hey, I just want to let you know, this is the plan. And I was surprised to hear that like I was the first one to tell people when something happens, not if, when something happens, this is what we need to do. This is your role in this specific situation. Emergencies are going to happen. And I think unless you're in a military or a first responder job that sees militaries unfold or emergencies unfold, I should say, unless you're in a job that sees emergencies all the time and how they unfold, you're not looking for emergencies to happen. But what we are, that's how we're wired. We're like, hey, I'm not going to be too close to that car. That car's probably going to be in a wreck. That's not how a lot of people think. It's not.
Yeah. It's the whole mentality. I've seen people running on a stretcher and the EMT is pumping their chest, and guess what? They don't survive. And you're just like, okay, well, all right, well, I just gotta make sure that area is secure.
When I was in Indonesia, my first trip ever overseas doing a presidential trip, I was I was pretty much given the reins to this facility so that I could do whatever I needed to do. And whenever game day happened, that's the day when the president shows up. We call that game day. Whenever game day happened, the place was locked down. So I had like my diplomatic badge, and I was met by a security guy I'd never met before. I didn't know he was a security guy. He looked like he was in black pajamas. So I was like not taking him serious. So, he's like, hey, you can't come in here. I'm like, oh, I'm coming in there. He's like, well, you're not bringing anything. I'm like, well, I'm bringing this. And he's like, no, I'm not. So we got into a little tussle. I asked him what I needed verbally. We didn't fight until later. I'm giving this away, man. Totally giving this away. But we ended up, he said I needed a diplomatic note. I got that, which is unheard of. And then I brought my device in for the president. And he ushered me into a room with a lot of people that were wearing black pajamas, like a pajama party that I was not invited to. So I immediately felt that things went up a couple of notches. So I do what I always do. I put my hands up in guard, and I'm like, hey, don't want any trouble, but I'm trying to protect myself, right? And this guy comes out of nowhere with a right hook, and he hits me, but he doesn't hit me. And I don't know, I probably smiled a little bit because I like violence. And I might have agitated him a little bit, but I remember during the agency training that I went through, I was not allowed to hit anyone or I'd lose my spot in the agency. I went back, calm, collected, got out of there. And then my boss at the time came in and was asking a bunch of questions. The President's middle aide was a Navy SEAL, so I'm looking at his trident and he's like asking me questions. And then I processed through it. First thing I stepped up to was anger. Man, so the first thing I did was got angry. I'm a combatives instructor at that time. I was a bouncer in college, and when I was enlisted, I used to be a bouncer. I like a fight, and I couldn't fight. That was the first time I'd been hit where I couldn't answer violence with violence, and I had to process that real quick, fast, and in a hurry. So immediately, I'm being pressured to give the specifics of this altercation that I did not expect to happen. And I don't want to. So I get mad and pushy. And then the SEAL's like, just tell us what's going on. He's answering violence with violence. And then he steps off. And then I start talking to my boss and I bring it down. And then I squirted one and I was like, what the hell is this? Like, why am I crying right now? I was like, what the heck is going on? My body's going through this range of emotions. And I remember just taking a deep breath. And I've always been taught that in military training, you're like, step back, take a deep breath, just stop, see what's going on, what is happening right now, And I remember taking that deep breath and calmly realizing I'm still in shock. What? I did at a peace conference, crying out loud. But like all of that, the whole story there is to tell you, like, Secret Service, they wanted to crush that dude. They were like, which one is it? And I was like, I'm not going to show you that guy. I know what's going to happen. They were like, well, which one is it? I'm like, I'm not telling you. So we had to work with Secret Service, the White House staff, and then I was a part of an agency that worked with the military facets of everything. And so, like, whenever they all found out about it, it was something else that night. It was really crazy. So I had the staff folks wanting to talk to me about the diplomacy side because they wanted favors. And then the Secret Service folks just wanted to inflict some pain. And then the military folks were like, what did you do? Like, I heard you cry. I'm like, what? How did you hear that? Now I was bawling. They were like, whatever, dude. I don't know if I could have done that. Yeah, that's the best part about being in environments like that. It's like the armchair quarterbacks that you get the next day. Like, dude, you weren't there. And if you would have hit them, you wouldn't be here right now. You would have gotten out. But the way it always works out is my grandfather, he got hit and he was coming back from a war zone. He got into an altercation with Gaddafi's bodyguards. The legend goes that he beat him up and got extradited out of the country. But they didn't have to extradite me. So win for my mom. My mom did it right. But yeah, the whole mindset, everybody's all over the place. And everybody wants to tell you how they would have done it. But they didn't know what was going on. They didn't see anything that was going on. They weren't hit in the face. You know what I mean? They weren't controlling violence. all of that time, for the last 15 years of getting in fights, I learned how to control my violence. And that moment right there was the moment that I got to like, hey, I can do this. I don't have to get into a fight with these people in their country and probably end up in jail or worse, you know? So weird times, but yeah.
You showed great restraint, and that's great. It's the whole plan to take forward. Okay, well, what's the conclusion of if I do punch this person in the face? They punch me, I got to punch back, and
Gonna go down.
yeah, it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. And that's a lot of people that I work with is they don't have that restraint. And they have that just, you do this and boom, I'll do this and the hell with my life. Yeah.
But everyone wants to talk about what they would do, James. Everyone's an expert. And it's easy looking back at that stuff, but everyone's full of crap, man.
Yeah.
It's like how people who've never been shot at, but they wear their combat action, you know, like they want to tell you how they would have handled the situation. Well, first of all, you didn't. And second of all, I had a different situation than you and you weren't there. So let's just all be quiet on that. Don't tell me what you would do, but it's fun. It's always fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the mental game is a huge thing. And I don't think that we as a society, whether you're 20, 30 or whatever, we don't grasp the concept of, okay, you have an option. You have different ways you can go about this rather than just lashing out. And even if you're shot at, it's like, yeah, that was close. My life could have been ended. Okay, well, how am I going to move forward from this? It's really a hard concept to comprehend because not everybody's in that situation, whether it's verbal being shot at or whatever. And we always react in the most bad way possible. And it gets us in trouble.
Yeah. So I like that. So I always like to talk about the difference between reaction and response. And what happens is when you're training, whenever you get into this training cycle, we teach you how to react. So you're getting shot at immediately, rifles up. Where am I getting shot at from? You know, can I return fire? Or should I return fire? Is it a safe thing? Like all the stuff that you react to is training. Responses are executions over time. So it's experience. So your response is going to be generated by your knowledge base and your experience level. And what I got to do in that situation was demonstrate that I was an experienced violence control expert. And some people were telling me I couldn't do that. You're absolutely right. You would have reacted. You might have hit somebody and you would have got kicked out because you're just not ready to be in a diplomatic environment. And what's funny about that, what's absolutely hilarious about that is everyone thinks that they will do a response, but most people do a reaction. And that's just the cycle. It's the reaction and response. You don't go up to your expectation whenever something happens. You go down to what you were trained to do. And if you're not trained what to do, then you're going to figure out your flight, fight, or freeze mechanism. It's going to be one of those. That's what's going to happen. Things are either going to slow down. Like everyone's got a different response, man. So whenever you hit something like extremely life-threatening, everything gets faster or it gets slower. You lose your sounds. You know, you can't hear anything for a while. There's heart palpitations. Like everything seems like it's going slower, but your adrenaline's just kicking in. There's a whole lot. There's a whole host of things that happen whenever your life is threatened that most people will never, ever experience. And that's okay, man. But your training should always be preparing you to be in a quasi-response mode. So if you're carrying a weapon, dude, you need to know how to use it. And that's a perishable skill. So if you're not going to the range every month or every 2 weeks like you're supposed to, you shouldn't be carrying a weapon because there's a good chance you're not going to hit your target. And if you're not going to hit your target, then you're carrying a weapon for a bad reason. And so that's just that. I'm not anti-gun. I am pro-gun, but you need to know what you're doing with it, or don't carry it. Keep it in the safe. You know what I mean? And so you can prepare yourself. But your preparation determines the outcome, and your preparation and experience determines your response. So reactions versus responses. I love that. It's two different words for a reason.
Yeah, definitely. I talk a lot with my clients. Like, reacting it's quick, it's dirty, it's just off the cuff. But the responding that's the tough part. That's really have to give some thinking to it. But when you're in that, fight, flight, freeze mode, and that prefrontal cortex goes out the window, we're just doing silly stuff, and that's what gets us in trouble. But you're right. You need to train. You need to make yourself efficient with those arms, because I've got too many damn guns. I need to
Nothing,
mount them.
Somebody's finding you. Your social media feed screwed up, man. You fix that, because there's no such thing as too many guns. No, I mean, I'm a huge proponent of having the weapons and being able to defend ourselves. And the whole reason for the Second Amendment is to be able to be an army of citizens, so that other countries will not bring what they have done in the past to our soil. So whenever people think about attacking America, they got to think really long and hard on that, because the people that have done that, it's not worked out well for them at all. And so they think about it, and they think about all the guns and all the stuff that's going on, and that's good. But what I think, and I'm not political. I'm not going to be a politician. I'm never running for office. But what I think a politician should go into is the thought of the training with the weapon. So if you're buying a weapon, you need to know where to get the training so that you know how to use it, whether you're shooting an animal. Because so I'm a big hunter, but I love animals. I love watching animals in the wild. I love finding them. I love animals, and I love eating the animal that I've worked hard to make sure is the right animal. So I don't want to shoot an animal and then it get wounded for life. That would hurt me, internally. I want to make sure that the shot that I take is quick and lethal, and it takes out the animal, so that I have food for the next year or whatever. I'm really a big proponent on, shooting. If you have a gun, you should know how to shoot it. And each gun is different. So you should know where to go to find out how you're going to be on that weapon, what you need to do with that weapon, what the nuances of that weapon. Every time I got a weapon, I went to the range with it. If I was going to go down range with it, if I went forward with it, I always took it to the range. Either was right away, where I went down range, the first thing I did was hit that target. But I always knew that I would be able to respond, not react with my weapon, and hit the targets that I wanted to hit instead of that. People, that's a big life lesson. I mean, people drift through life all the time, and they listen to people give them advice on things they should do. And people are shoulding all over the place, man. They're just shoulding all over the place. You should do this, you should do that. That's right.
Dr. Albert Ellis, shooting over yourself and masturbating. Yes. And that's the approach that I take. You got to cut that out.
I approach everything like that. Instead of goals, I hit targets. So what's cool about a target is it's not like a goal or a New Year's resolution. Whenever you set up a target, you see that target until you hit that target. And then when you hit the target, you have the decision to make. Do I want to refine my shot and hit dead center, get in the middle of that bullseye, or do I want to move on to the next target? Because if you're focusing on more than 3 things, you're not going to hit anything. Or you might get lucky and spray and pray and hit 1 or 2. But if you're focusing on one target, then the math looks like this. 33% of our time every day is spent switching between tasks, according to a book called The One Thing. And if I pare that down to just 20%, I'll put that into a time perspective that'll be pretty easy to grasp. It looks like this. 1 week out of every month is spent switching between tasks. It's 4 months out of every year is spent switching between tasks. Right. So that's what, 2.5 years out of every 10 years, you're switching between tasks. And if you're doing that continuously, trying to hit your goals, you're switching from one goal to another goal to another goal to another goal, you're not going to hit as many goals. So if you put the goals aside and you reframe it into a target and you pick one thing that you're going after, you're going to hit that target and then you can move on. For me, the last target I had was I wanted to get 100 reviews on my last book. And, so I asked everybody and then boom, I got 100. And then I'm like, on to the next thing. What am I going to do? Oh, audiobook. I'm reading my audiobook right now. That's my next target. So one target at a time, and then you're good. It becomes second nature, man. But I'm a big proponent of that.
Yeah. So, just the focus that it takes to, like you said, like a target and own to one thing. I think we as a society in a whole, we want to, this is going on, this is going on, this is going on, but what's your target? What's your focus? And I love that analogy because it's right, because you need to focus on this one thing rather than I always use in my classes Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And especially with the environment that I work with, like, okay, well, the bottom of the pyramid is your basic. Am I getting food? Am I getting shelter? And they're more involved in like, I need to find love. I'm like, yeah, love's higher up on the scale. You might want to kind of turn it back a little bit and try to find your basic needs, and then the other things will come, but getting laid is not your highest priority.
It's not
at this point.
That's right. Yeah. The target situation over goals is so applicable, like you said. And the reason why is the world's so noisy right now. Like, people are bringing their weapons to your gun range, which is your life, right? And they're over there shooting a 357, they got the long, boom, Dirty Harry right next to you. They want you to pay attention to them shooting, or you have the guy that got an automatic weapons permit on the other side, just he wants you to pay attention to his target. But if you can put your muffs on and your target downrange and you have your eyes, your ears, and your focus, you'll hit the target, man. You'll hit the target. And then guess what? Time will come up, put another target downrange or two targets, and you go back and forth. After a while, whenever you hit a target and you know how to do it and you're consistent with it, it becomes muscle memory. Boom, 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 boom. I'm doing a podcast a week. I'm doing a stage a month. Those are boom, booms. Those are targets that I hit last year, and I do them now all the time. Boom, boom. I look for good shows. I look for good stages. And then I talk to the people and I'm like, is this going to be worth it for me? So I've gotten to where there are options. I'm not begging anybody to come on anything. You know what I mean? We're not doing that because we know better, but the target is so important for people to focus on. What are your targets, man? What are your targets? Your first target should be waking up in the mirror and looking in the mirror. That mirror is your first target. Like, that person is the person that sets up all the targets. So all your left and right, doesn't matter what they bring to the ring. They bring a cannon. I don't care. I'm focusing on me and my lane. I'm not going to shoot in your lane. You better not shoot mine. If you do shoot mine and you knock out my target, well, I'll just set up another one.
Yeah. I mean, the looking in the mirror thing, that at the earlier stage of my life, after my mom died and stuff, and I carried that on for years, and they give you all kinds of sympathy to a point. And then they're like, yeah, you're just effing up your entire life. And finally, when I looked in the mirror and I was like, okay, if my mom was still alive, she would be kicking my ass. You're just wasting all these years. Get your ass doing something productive. And to me, that was the defining moment. I was like, okay, I'm gonna quit chasing all these women and trying to do this, that, and other. And I'm going to go back to school and try to find a career. And at that time, all my friends they're married, having kids, and doing the normal stuff. And that looking in the mirror thing is because we don't really take value in what's going on in our life until we actually slow down, because we're trying to do so many things. But just sit down and go, okay, what's my goal? What's my target? Yeah. And at that time, like, my target was getting laid and going to relationship, trying to find meaning, and it's a rough time. But when I focused my target on, well, let me get some more education, let me find a career, and I can make some money, and then things kind of turned out better. Yeah, imagine that.
I had an E9 when I came in as an E1. Set me aside, and he said, "There's 3 signs. It's 3 signs you need to stay away from." He said, "Are you ready for them?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "All right. These are the things that will get you kicked out of the military and screw up your life. Number 1, alcohol. You drink too much alcohol, you're screwed up." He's like, when you look in the mirror, if you look up in the mirror in the morning and you're drunk, that's your sign. Don't do that. He said, drugs. Drugs should be not around you. Anytime you see drugs that are not prescribed, that's your sign. You need to stay away from that. He said, the third thing, all over the place, is women will strip everything out of your life. They will take everything from you, and they don't care. So unless you're marrying one, don't mess with them. Yeah. And so he's like, and that's your sign there. I said, that's the sign that's everywhere, but you need to stay away from those 3 things. You know, your alcohol, don't drink too much of it. You can enjoy some, but don't drink too much of it. Don't do drugs you're not prescribed. It's just, that's something. Stay away from the women that you're not supposed to be around, and you'll be all right. And he was right.
Yeah.
I day drink. Every once in a while. I have a whiskey. My soon-to-be wife, she's like, "What are you doing?" I said, I don't need to be anywhere. I'm not on call. I've never done this before. I'm trying it out. So I have a whiskey in the middle of the day, and I'm not drunk or anything. Well, like, yeah, I can see why people do that, I guess. I'll go take it.
Yeah. I used to tell my guys, and it'd be the weekend. I'd be like, okay, well, all right, well, have a good time. If you drink too much, give me a call. I'll come pick you up. And wrap it up, because, you know,
good soldier wears a helmet.
Yep. Just wrap it up. Just looking back, it's like, that was words of wisdom.
Because, you know, ain't anybody else telling them that. And they're not telling themselves that. They don't care most of the time.
They're out there doing their thing and whatever. And just at least wrap it up. But yeah, I worked with a lot of good guys, but.
And I mean, I had that. One of my coworkers was a technical sergeant. He was an E7, E6, and he's like, "Hey man, if you need me to come get you, I'll do it." And I was like, "Okay." So that weekend, I had a beer, and I was thinking, like, should I call this guy? And I was like, nah, you know, he outranks me pretty high up. You know, I'm not gonna waste this time. I remember getting behind the wheel, and this cop followed me out to the road, and I was like, damn, I should have called him. And I was like, call him. And this cop followed me home. And I had like 1 beer, but still, like, scared the bejesus out of me.
What I always loved was when, like, you would roll into the base, and then the MP would be like, have you been drinking? Like, dude, no. I'm 100 yards from my house. Like, I made it here. So why are you hassling me?
I tell you, I've seen this a lot, and a lot of bureaucracy happens all over corporate America too. And what usually happens is the old Ford model, which I like to credit Ford with becoming the differentiator between management and leadership. Before Ford in the assembly line used to have people that were thinkers like you were. Whenever you would go off into an environment where the ability to make something better, you were able to, and manage, it's an amazing thing to see people try to transfer from one thing to another and then find out, well, heck, I'm not allowed to think. So a lot of times whenever you're vying for a position, it doesn't work like that. It works like, can I influence the person we're trying to promote? And if the answer is no, well, then maybe you don't get the promotion because they want somebody they can control more. Then they don't want a leader, they want a manager. So some of the supervisory roles, whenever they are picking people, they're picking people that they can influence without having to explain a lot of things at a deeper level, unfortunately. I hate to say it like that, and I'm bashing decision makers in that sense, but a lot of people make decisions for convenience of themselves rather than the betterment of the organization. And that's just a fact, man.
Yeah, because if you aren't asked questions, and you might make me have to do more work because you've unlocked these things that are not working, and it's just, no, we're just going to go this direction. And I was told early on in my career where I'm now, like, you got to learn to play the game. And I'm not going to kiss ass. I'm sorry. I can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't change yourself, dude. 'Cause then you won't be happy. You know what I mean? That's the biggest thing. People change themselves all the time, try to get that next, whatever it is, raise, and then they get more stuff in their life. And my favorite quote from Fight Club is, sometimes the stuff we own ends up owning us. And whenever people get promoted and they get that title, they own that title, then that title really owns them. And they don't see that for the playing cards that they've been dealt. You know, they try to reshuffle the deck, and then, you know, they had queens and kings, and now they got deuces and threes. And they're like, well, how'd this happen? Well, you shuffled the deck, brother. Your deck. Yeah.
But yeah, I love how you brought up Fight Club, which to me is like one of the best. There's so many good moments in that movie. You could do an entire class on just taking out scenes in that movie. And what you said is like the things end up owning you, and just that simple thing. Like, I don't want to have a mortgage that owns me. And I've seen too many people over the years. Yeah, I got the nice car, I got the nice house, but then you go inside the house and their mattresses are on the floor. There's no furniture.
They'll get around to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, who are you trying to impress besides yourself?
Like you shouldn't, again, mirror check that, you know, that David Goggins says it's an accountability mirror. That's the way he explains it. You know, if you're looking in the mirror and that person's not happy, I mean, why? Who cares about all the crap you have in your life? A lot of people are looking at those promotions for the wrong reasons, and they'll change themselves to get the promotions. They'll kiss butt, and then they'll do the yes man thing, and then they'll get the promotion and realize, crap, I didn't want this to begin with. Like, why did I do this for an extra $5,000 a year so that my family can eat out once more a month? Because, I mean, come on, let's break it down. Like, whenever you make money, you start spending more frivolously, like eating out and stuff like that. It just dissipates, and then you're stuck. Golden handcuffs is the way we like to phrase it as entrepreneurs, right? The golden handcuffs. So I'm very careful. People offer me jobs all the time. They're like, do you want to come speak on the stage? And I'm like, what's the stage? And then they'll be like, oh, it's a good stage. And I'm like, says who? Like, I don't want to talk to it. Like, I got one last month. It was like, hey, there's going to be 5,000 high school kids here. I'm like, I don't want 5,000 high school kids on my social media. No offense. I just don't. That's not my crowd, man. I don't know what they're going to say in the comments. You know, they're going to be distracting to the people that I'm actually helping. So no, I don't want to go talk at your stage. I'm like 5,000 people. I'm like, look at my TED Talk, dude. I got like 40,000 plus people that I'm helping right now that are proven leaders, not starting life. So thank you, no thank you. But you know, that's how it is. But then also I've been in high school stages where it'll be a junior ROTC. And I know that those kids are going to go in the military. So, yeah, I'll talk to your high school kids. I got, when I came back from Afghanistan. I was fresh out of a divorce, and my son was living with me, and he's like, I'd really like a Shiba Inu. And I'm like, I looked at him like, those look like foxes. And he's like, yeah. I was like, yeah, I'd never have them. Let's try one of those things out. So I got the dog, and the dog came in, and the dog handler, they delivered it to me. And he's like, have you ever had one of these? I'm like, no, man, you never bought a dog before, ever. So he's like, oh, these are great dogs. They come potty trained. And I'm like, they do what now? And he's like, yeah, they come potty trained. They're really clean. I was like, okay. So he's like, just take it out. This is how you do it. Gave me instructions for a dog. Like I'm not, like, never had dogs before. Anyways. So, taking the dog out. Did fantastic. Never like did anything in the house. So I started bringing it to work. I'm like, gold mine, man. It's a great dog. Dog's hiding underneath my desk. Doesn't like people. Perfect dog for me. Anyway, the dog came out one time, and I was talking to somebody. It was a senior leader on base, and he was in my office. He goes, oh, it's a cool dog. I'm like, yeah, they come potty trained. And she straight looked at him and peed on the floor. And I was like, well, that was the first time that's ever happened. He goes, I was lying to him. Well, I was like, man, that dog does not like him. I don't know what. The only time, yeah, unless she can't get out, she does a good job.
All right.
I got about 10 minutes that I got to bring the kids to today's movie time.
Okay. Just real quick, just to kind of end it. What do you think the military mentality, like, what is that? And that's a thing that I've had such a hard time conveying to my wife, my employers, so on and so forth. That military mentality that does not connect with the outside group.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll do it with one phrase: burn the boats. We in the military have a burn the boats mentality. It's been forced into us. So where it started was we all decided we were going to do something to be part of something that's bigger than ourselves, whether it's for, helping the nation, getting back at terrorists or college education, whatever the motive was. We all decided we were going to be a part of this bigger machine. And people like to call that service. I like to call it commitment, but I like to call it sacrifice, really, because what we did was we said we're shedding all of the things that are comfortable in life, and we're going to be told the specific things that we must do in order to make success happen for a bigger something, whatever it is, whatever your mission set is. So we ended up taking this oath, and then they trained it into us. They trained us to burn the boats. There was no other option but to win. A lot of people don't get that unless they're in these bigger corporations and they're consistently winning. They don't understand the winning mentality that comes out of a military mindset. When we get to the island, we burn the boats. We're taking this island. That's what happens every time. That's what we're trained to do. We're trained in lethality. Our profession is that of arms, so we're always looking at a violent solution or a nonviolent solution, but either way, we're going to win. And that's not something that's built into everyone, but it's baked into us. So I think the culture that we get exposed to, whether you've been in there for 3 years or 30, it don't matter. You have that baked in, and it comes through basic training, and it gets amplified with every experience that you have in addition to that. So that commitment to excellence, that's something that you'll find in service members and first responders, because they're all expected to do. No one ever looked at history and said, I wonder how we're going to get there. They just expected the Navy and the Air Force to bring whatever force it was. No one's asking those questions. The American citizens aren't asking, how we're going to get there. No one's asking whether or not we're going to win. It's just we're going to go to war, and we're expected to win. until we don't want to be there anymore, which happens too. That's what President Trump did. He's like, we're not going to be in Afghanistan anymore. Well, there's no decisive end to this. Yeah, but we're not going to be in. So we decided we don't want to be fighting anymore. We win. Yeah. It doesn't matter. The course of action is always a win. We always burn the boats. And that's not something everyone does. People are like, well, I'm going to keep a boat just in case Coleman. It's not in us anymore.
Yeah. It's been a great pleasure. If you got some time in the near future, let me know. We'll schedule time to talk some more if you want.
All right. Thanks, Nick, for having me, man. Appreciate it. I even get to talk about, like, what was in my book with feeling a Secret Service vehicle or anything like that. That is.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. All these shows are going to be helping some people. So thanks for putting them together, man. It takes a lot of work and not too many people do it. So, thank you for doing this for all of us, man. For sure.
If it helps one person, then it's worth it.
Amen. All right.
All right, man. Talk to you later.
Yeah, brother.